For those of you that don't know what the Freedom Index is, it's a congressional scorecard based off the U.S. Constitution. And our staff here, which includes Christian, uses this as a way to base their adherence to constitutional principles for their voting record. So Christian, what did you find in this issue?
Yes, the Freedom Index is finally out. And unfortunately, the scores this time were kind of low overall across the board. The average score in the House of Representatives was a 45%, and the average score in the Senate was at 32%. But on the bright side, there were some shining stars in the House and in the Senate. The highest scores in the House were 100%. That's always good to see. Not a lot of hundreds like we saw in the last Freedom Index, unfortunately. Only 5 this time. They include Rob Woodhull of Georgia, Thomas Massey of Kentucky, who is one of the best perhaps in the entire House, if not the best congressman when it comes to having a consistent constitutional voting record. Also, Congressman Walter Jones of North Carolina, and Michael Burgess, if I'm saying his name right, from Texas, and also John Duncan of Tennessee. So those were the 5 100s in the House. As for the Senate, we didn't have any hundreds, but we had 2 90s, which were the top scores, and those were Rand Paul of Kentucky, the son of Congressman Ron Paul, or former Congressman Ron Paul, rather, and Senator Mike Lee of Utah. Okay. So those were the top scores that we had in the Senate.
What votes were they?
Yeah, we picked 10 different votes in the House and 10 different votes in the Senate, of course, because they're voting on different things in the House. The first vote was a vote on the waters of the United States. And the description for all these votes, by the way, are in the
actual issue.
In the actual issue. So I won't go over every detail of every vote.
So need to get this issue.
That's exactly right. So one of the votes rather in the House was on President Obama's executive action on immigration. You may remember some time ago he signed an executive order, essentially stating that there would be a deferment on deporting any illegal immigrants, like the undocumented, unaccompanied minors, for example, and even adult illegal immigrants. So this is creating a de facto amnesty situation where illegals are not going to be deported, they're just going to be allowed to stay here. So, and that's a violation of the constitutional separation of powers. Right. So there's a vote on that in the House, and you could see where your congressman and your senator, your member of the House of Representatives, rather, how they stood on that. Another vote in the House was a vote on a bill that would prohibit the FCC from regulating the Internet. So that's in there as well. And we talked a bit about before. Well, you talked about
privacy.
The Internet privacy. So that kind of goes along with that. So if you read that article, the cover story, you found it really interesting, you will want to check how your congressman voted on that particular issue. And then another vote in the House was the use of military force. There was an amendment to a bill offered by Representative Barbara Lee of California. It was a good, amendment she put in there to end the authorization use of force that's been the justification for the wars overseas and so forth. So we're glad to see that kind of amendment in there. And you could see how your members of Congress voted on that, whether they voted to end all the wars or to keep going or to keep continuing the overseas interventionism. In the Senate, some of the votes that we picked, some highlights, out at the Fed vote. The bill was introduced by Senator Rand Paul, and it made it to a vote, so you could see how individuals voted on the Federal Reserve Transparency Act. And there was a vote also about the Iraqi and Syrian refugees, which is a
big issue.
Exactly. It's a huge issue, especially in Europe, and Britain has been having to deal with that.
But they don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because now with the Brexit, the UK was no longer under the yoke of the EU's immigration policy. But unfortunately for us, we need some action from Congress to stop that influx of refugees coming in and the potential dangers that could be accompanied with that, of course. So there was a vote on that in the Senate, and again, check to see how your senators voted on that. And then there was a vote, a pretty prominent vote, on the confirmation of President Obama's nomination of John King to be the new Secretary of Education. Now, John King is
Democrat.
You're absolutely right. He is a Democrat, and for some time he actually served as the Commissioner of Education for New York State. So during his tenure as the Commissioner for the New York State Education Department, he was implementing Common Core. So this guy is a radical supporter of Common Core, and that's the same exact guy that Obama's nominated. So even though there aren't that many Common Core votes that happen in Congress these days, this vote can sort of gives you an idea of whether your senator is for someone who favors Common Core or not. So that's pretty significant vote there. And those are just some of the votes that we picked in the House and in the Senate this time around. So people should definitely check that out if they have the opportunity to do so.
You guys did a great job of simplifying and refining it, so it's perfect for the reader. So you guys can get your issue at shopjbs.org for all of this, and let us know your thoughts on this issue as well on our social media pages. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter.